A homeless human figured out something that billion-dollar outdoor gear companies have spent decades trying to hide from you, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Welcome to Wild Survival, the channel where nature's most resourceful creatures reveal the survival secrets that the modern world forgot. If you're new here, smash that subscribe button right now, because what we're about to show you will permanently change how you think about staying alive in the wild. Now, back to that secret. Deep in the Sonoran Desert, a tiny kangaroo rat, barely the size of your fist, survives temperatures that swing from over 100 degrees Fahrenheit at noon to near freezing before dawn. No sleeping bag, no tent, no gear at all, just instinct, physics, and a burrow system so thermally efficient it puts your expensive camping setup to shame. And here's what's wild. The principles that kangaroo rat uses to stay alive tonight are the exact same principles that keep people alive on the streets of Chicago in January with nothing but cardboard and a reflective blanket. How is that even possible? We're going to break it down, layer by layer, the wild survival way. But first, we need to talk about what's actually killing people in the outdoors, and it's not what most people think. Picture this. A black bear named Kodiak is standing at the edge of a pine forest in Montana as the sun drops behind the mountains, temperatures falling fast. Within the next 8 hours, the air around him will drop 40 degrees. Now, Kodiak doesn't run to the nearest REI. He doesn't strap on a $400 sleeping system. Instead, he does something that looks almost embarrassingly simple from the outside, but is actually a masterclass in thermal engineering.
He finds a spot, digs in, insulates from below, and creates the smallest possible warm envelope around his body. That's it. And he survives every single winter doing exactly that. Here's the uncomfortable truth that the outdoor gear industry does not want you sitting with. Your body is already a survival machine. It generates roughly 100 watts of heat continuously, night and day, whether you're sleeping or awake. That's the same output as an old-fashioned incandescent light bulb running nonstop. The question has never been whether your body produces enough heat. The question is whether your shelter keeps that heat where it belongs, around you. Your expensive tent? It barely helps with that at all, and we're going to prove it. Think about Mara, a red fox navigating the outskirts of Minneapolis in February. Mara knows something by pure instinct that most human campers spent hundreds of dollars trying to learn. Heat doesn't just disappear in one way. It escapes through 5 completely different pathways, and if your shelter only blocks 1 or 2 of them, you are going to suffer, no matter how much money you spent on gear. The first pathway is conduction. This is the silent killer that most people never think about. When your body touches a cold surface, the frozen ground, a rock, even a damp sleeping pad, heat moves directly out of you and into that surface at a rate 25 times faster than it would escape through cold air alone. 25 times. Let that land for a second. This is why Mara the fox never curls up directly on bare ground. She finds leaf litter, dry grass, anything that breaks that direct thermal connection. Even the poorest insulating material in the world is dramatically better than ground contact with nothing.
The second pathway is convection. Moving air is a heat thief. It sweeps warmth away from your skin continuously, replacing the thin, warm layer your body creates around itself with fresh, cold air. This is why wind chill exists. This is why a night that's technically above freezing can still push a poorly prepared person toward hypothermia if the wind is moving. The third pathway is radiation. Your body constantly emits infrared energy, invisible heat waves that radiate outward from your skin in every direction, all night long. Unless something reflects that energy back at you, it simply disappears into the cold air around you. You are literally glowing heat into the void and getting nothing back. The fourth pathway is respiration. Every breath you exhale carries warm, moist air out of your body and replaces it with cold, dry air that your lungs have to warm back up. In extreme cold, this becomes a significant source of heat loss, and it's one almost nobody talks about. The fifth pathway is evaporation. Sweat, even the light moisture your skin produces during sleep, evaporates off your body and takes thermal energy with it. If your sleeping system traps moisture instead of managing it, you're not just uncomfortable, you're actively being cooled from the inside out. Now here's the question I want you to answer in the comments right now. Which one of these 5 pathways do you think is hardest to protect against? Drop your answer down below. Our community of wild survival watchers has some seriously sharp opinions on this, and we read every single one. Now, back to Kodiak the black bear. When Kodiak builds his winter den, he isn't doing any of this consciously, but the structure he creates addresses all 5 pathways with ruthless efficiency.
And right now, we're going to walk through how a human can replicate those same principles with $20 and a hardware store run. Because understanding this will make you a fundamentally different kind of survivor than 99% of the people who call themselves outdoorsmen. The foundation of the system starts where Kodiak starts, with the ground. The earth beneath your feet is not neutral. It is actively hostile to your survival in cold conditions. The ground acts as what engineers call an infinite heat sink, a surface with essentially unlimited capacity to absorb thermal energy. If you sleep directly on it, or even a few layers of fabric above it, the ground will drain your body heat quietly and relentlessly all night long, and no amount of blankets piled on top of you will stop it. This is one of the most common and most dangerous mistakes that inexperienced campers make. The solution is elevation. Even a few inches of air gap between your body and the frozen earth changes everything. Construction sites, logistics warehouses, and grocery stores throw away thousands of wooden pallets every single day. 2 or 3 of them stacked and lashed together create a sleeping platform that functions like an expensive camping cot, except you found them for free. That air gap breaks the conductive connection with the ground. Your body heat stays with your body. It sounds almost too simple, and that's exactly why it works. Now watch what happens next, because this is where the system starts to pull away from conventional gear. On top of that elevated platform, you layer cardboard.
Flattened cardboard boxes, the kind that every grocery store and appliance retailer throws away daily, are structurally full of tiny trapped air pockets inside their corrugated walls. And trapped, still air is one of the finest insulating materials in existence. It conducts heat poorly. It resists convection because it isn't moving. When you stack 4 to 6 layers of flattened cardboard, you build an insulation barrier whose thermal resistance approaches what you'd get from a commercial foam sleeping pad, the kind outdoor retailers sell for $60 to $100, except yours costs nothing and is sitting in a recycling bin right now. You know who figured this out long before any outdoor gear company thought to bottle it up and sell it back to you? Raccoons. Not literally with cardboard, but the principle is identical. Rocky the raccoon, navigating a cold November night in a hollow oak tree in Tennessee, doesn't find the thickest, densest material he can. He finds dry leaves, newspaper, dry grass, materials full of small, still air pockets. He layers them, he nests down into them. He is applying insulation physics that haven't changed since before mammals existed on this planet. But here's where the homeless shelter system does something genuinely extraordinary, something that even experienced survivalists overlook until they see the physics laid out in front of them. The outer structure of this system uses a technology called a radiant barrier, and the origin of this technology isn't a camping store, it's NASA. When scientists at NASA needed to protect spacecraft from the brutal thermal extremes of space, temperatures swinging from positive 250 degrees Fahrenheit in direct sunlight to negative 250 in shadow, they developed thin metallic coatings that could reflect radiant heat energy instead of absorbing it. The result was an ultra-thin aluminum layer that bounces up to 90% of infrared radiation back towards its source. That same technology, scaled down and sold for $2 to $3 each, is what you call an emergency mylar blanket, the shiny silver sheet that most people think is just for wrapping around accident survivors at the side of a highway. When you drape 1 or 2 of those mylar blankets over a simple frame, branches lashed together, PVC pipe from a hardware store scrap bin, it doesn't matter. You create an enclosed space that reflects your own body's radiant heat back onto you continuously, all night long. Your 100-watt biological furnace stops losing energy to radiation. That heat bounces back. The interior of your small shelter warms up, and then it stays warm. But the geometry matters enormously, and this is the part that should make every tent owner deeply uncomfortable. Here's what nobody in the camping industry will tell you. Bigger is not better when it comes to cold weather shelter. It is the opposite of better. It is actively worse. Think about hummingbirds. A ruby-throated hummingbird named Blaze, weighing less than a nickel, survives cold nights by doing something called torpor, essentially dropping her metabolism and nestling into the tightest, most enclosed space available. She is not trying to get comfortable in a spacious environment. She is trying to make the smallest possible warm bubble around her body. That instinct is thermodynamically perfect. When you buy the largest tent you can afford, the 6-person freestanding dome that feels palatial when you set it up in the backyard, you are creating a massive volume of cold air that your body has to heat up before you feel any warmth at all. On a cold night, that tent volume works against you. Cold air pooling around you at ground level, convection currents moving through the interior, your 100 watts of body heat disappearing into a space that demands far more than you can produce. The Mylar shelter system works on the exact opposite principle. You build the smallest enclosed volume that fits your body comfortably. Your heat fills that space almost immediately. The reflective walls send your own radiant energy back at you, and the result is that your core temperature stabilizes, your shivering stops, and you sleep. This is not theory, this is physics. And it's exactly why seasoned rescue workers and military survival instructors teach improvised shelter construction before they teach anything about gear selection. Because a properly built improvised shelter will outperform a poorly understood expensive tent every single time. Now we need to talk about one final component that multiplies the effectiveness of this entire system, and it involves an animal you might not expect: the Pacific tree frog. Specifically, a tree frog named Cedar who lives in the coastal forests of Oregon and understands something about thermal momentum that most humans have completely forgotten. Before Cedar settles in for a cold night, she doesn't just find her spot and hope for the best. She spends time in the last warmth of the sun, absorbing heat into her body, building up a thermal reserve that will carry her through the coldest hours. She preloads warmth. She gives herself a head start. Human beings can do the exact same thing, and the technique costs almost nothing. Fill 2 standard 1-liter plastic bottles with the hottest water you can safely handle. Seal them tightly. Place them inside your shelter system approximately 20 minutes before you plan to sleep. Those 2 bottles contain enough thermal energy, roughly 500 British thermal units, to raise the interior temperature of your small enclosed shelter by 10 to 15 degrees before your body ever touches the sleeping surface. You are pre-warming your environment, the same way Cedar pre-warms herself in the last afternoon sun. This matters more than most people realize. When you climb into a shelter that is already warm, your body does not have to ignite a metabolic furnace from scratch. You're not burning energy fighting cold materials. You're not shivering to generate supplemental heat. You go directly to sleep, your core temperature stays steady, and you wake up genuinely rested, which in a real survival situation is the difference between making good decisions the next morning and making the kind of clouded, hypothermia-tinged decisions that get people killed. Compare that to the conventional setup: a premium 0-degree sleeping bag, the kind that outdoor gear companies market specifically for cold conditions, retails for anywhere from $400 to $800. It weighs approximately 4 pounds. It protects against heat loss primarily through a single mechanism: conductive insulation between your body and the air inside the bag.
It does almost nothing about radiant heat loss. It does nothing about your ground contact unless you buy a separate sleeping pad for another $100. And if it gets wet, if rain finds its way into your tent, if you sweat heavily, if condensation builds up, its insulating ability drops dramatically, sometimes catastrophically. The improvised shelter system we've just walked through costs under $20 if you purchase every single component brand new. It weighs roughly 4 pounds when you account for the Mylar blankets and cardboard, and it attacks all 5 heat loss pathways simultaneously. The conduction problem addressed by elevation and layered cardboard, the convection problem solved by the small enclosed volume, the radiation problem neutralized by reflective barriers, the respiration and evaporation problems managed by the small interior space that warms quickly and holds moisture at survivable levels. This is why Whisker, an old gray wolf in the Canadian Rockies, is not impressed by expensive gear. Whisker has survived 23 winters in conditions that would hospitalize an unprepared human in hours. He doesn't do it with premium equipment. He does it with layering, shelter geometry, elevation off the ground, and the stored body heat of a packed-in wolf family that keeps their den interior warmer than the outside air by 15 degrees or more. Every single principle we've discussed, applied by a predator who has never heard of REI.
The system also does something that no manufactured tent or sleeping bag can match. It scales and adapts in real time without requiring a return trip to a store. Temperature dropped 15 degrees overnight and you're not warm enough? Add 2 more layers of cardboard beneath you. Takes 30 seconds.
Costs nothing. Suddenly need to shelter a second person? Extend the Mylar frame outward. Add more reflective coverage. The physics still work at the larger scale. Need to relocate in a hurry? Flooding, threat, changing conditions? The pallets and cardboard stay behind. You carry the Mylar blankets, which weigh almost nothing and fold into a pocket, and you rebuild at your new location in under an hour using whatever materials the new environment provides. Try modifying your tent in any of those ways. You can't. It's a fixed system, a fixed investment, a fixed set of capabilities. And in a real survival situation, fixedness is fragility. Military survival schools understand this at a level that civilian camping culture has largely forgotten. Special Forces operators are not issued $100 sleeping pads and $400 sleeping bags as their primary cold weather survival strategy. They are taught to build debris huts, improvised shelters, and thermal systems from whatever the environment offers, because equipment gets lost, damaged, stolen, and left behind. Knowledge doesn't. Skills don't. The understanding of how heat moves through materials and how to stop it, that goes wherever you go. That's the real lesson inside everything we've covered today. Not that you should throw away your camping gear or that expensive equipment has no value. A well-designed sleeping bag used correctly in the right conditions is genuinely effective. The real lesson is that the physics of staying warm are not locked behind a price tag. They're available to anyone who understands them. And the animal kingdom has been demonstrating this for hundreds of millions of years without reading a single gear review.
The kangaroo rat in the Sonoran Desert survives tonight with a burrow and physics. Kodiak, the black bear, survives the Montana winter with a den and instinct. Cedar, the tree frog, survives the Oregon coast with solar preloading and a tight, reflective hollow. Mara, the red fox, survives Minneapolis with layering, curling, and an acute sense of where her heat is going. And the person sleeping on a city sidewalk in January, wrapped in Mylar and resting on layered cardboard above the frozen concrete, that person is applying every single one of these same principles, unconsciously, out of necessity, but correctly. The $20 shelter beats the $300 tent not because it's a magic trick. It beats it because it takes thermodynamics seriously. That's what wild survival is about. Real principles, animal-level resourcefulness, knowledge that travels with you regardless of what gear you do or don't have in your pack. If this video expanded the way you think about staying alive in the wild, the best thing you can do right now is subscribe, because we release new episodes every week, and every single one is built the same way. Hard science, animal wisdom, and the survival strategies that actually hold up when everything goes wrong. Drop your answer to today's comment question down below. Which of the 5 heat loss pathways do you think is the hardest to fight? And tell us what survival topic you want to see Wild Survival tackle next. We read every comment. We build episodes around your answers. Stay warm, stay sharp, stay wild.